This regular meeting of the Detroit Lake City Council is called to order. And at this time, I'd like to invite all of you to please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. If there are no additions, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda.
I so move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the regular agenda of the City Council. Discussion?
Say, Mayor, I think we do have two additions.
Okay.
We have, under Public Works, we have an extra application for a special event to this document. And then under liquor and gambling, we have one extra special event liquor application.
Okay, so the motioner and the seconder, will you allow those to be added to your motion? Second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, with those two items, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The consent agenda is before the council, and all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there any member of the council or any member of the public that wishes to either add or remove an item from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to, item 6P, remove and put on the agenda.
6P?
Yes.
Any other items? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 6P.
So move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The minutes of the regular city council meeting held May 9th, 2023, and the special city council meeting held May 24th, 2023 are before the council, and I would entertain a motion for their approval if there are no corrections or additions.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the city council meetings held May 9th and May 24th. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I'm going to adjust some of the agenda items tonight for folks that are in the audience. But first, I'm going to adjourn the regular meeting and call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on the proposed improvement of curb, gutter, concrete approaches, bituminous, and sidewalks for 2023. And I'm going to call on our Public Works Director, Sean King, to introduce this item. Sean?
Mayor and Council, what you have before you is a resolution for curb gutter, concrete approaches, bituminous, and sidewalk repairs. What we did in February, we brought this to you and got approval to go out to bids. March, we sent the bid packages out to several different contractors. April, we accepted the bids, and we're here now for the assessment hearing on these concrete repairs.
Okay, so is there anyone in the audience that either has a question or wishes to make a comment about the proposed improvements to curb, gutter, concrete approaches, bituminous, and sidewalks for 2020?
I do.
Yes, ma'am. And would you mind coming up to the podium so we can hear?
I'll go up there with you.
We have one little spot.
Can you go to the podium so we can all hear better?
Have to go over here.
Huh?
Right there.
The
by the
podium's
mic.
right here with the mic.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, we'd like to have your name and address for our minutes.
We have one little
This is
spot.
Larry Peterson and his wife Dorothy.
Okay.
11215 North Street East. That's Highway 34.
Okay, thank you.
And it's a spot about this big. And we didn't do it. The plows did it when they go by. We live right on 34.
They got them big equipment and they drag it down the curb, you know, and they break everything to get in their way. You can see where they've been scraping everything up there.
So Sean, what do we do in a situation like that?
And we're supposed to pay $1,000 for that? My son could fix it in a minute.
Yes, what we have is some, just looking at this, curb and gutter replacement at that location of approximately 19 feet. And yes, they are on North Street, which is considered Highway 34, but still that our responsibility for that curb and gutter.
But I don't know why we should have to pay for it when the state broke it. Why
It
do you have
is
to-
a state highway after all.
We should go after the state then, because they're gonna do it again next winter.
So Charlie, can you offer us any advice on what we might do in this
I've
situation?
got a picture of it if you want to see it.
Mayor, I can give you advice that going after the state isn't going to work because we don't get to bring actions against the state to collect. As far as otherwise funding the project, you know, we typically fund these projects through special assessments against the benefited landowner. I don't suppose that there's a requirement that the city does that, but that's been done throughout the city. Basically all the sidewalks in front of my place, right, the neighbor's place. It's the same procedure that we always do.
I don't see why they gotta tear up 19 feet of curb and gutter. For one thing.
That's crazy.
Now, we're just a couple old people trying to make do, you know? Maybe it's stick us with something like this.
Okay, well, we have heard your comments, and
Do you want to see the picture?
do you have it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we might as well see it.
Hold my purse. It's terrible.
John, is there any way of keeping
Well,
track,
can I
or do
come
you keep
back up
track
when I
of
find it?
repetitive
Sure.
injuries at the same locations?
We don't.
Can't find it.
Well,
We can
I
go year
will.
after year and look back.
I just had it
There's no
on the
program.
other day.
These from year to year.
But no spreadsheet, flow chart.
Generally, once we replace them, they're not re-damaged. You know, it doesn't get damaged over.
Heidi, is there a payment plan for these folks as far as doing this? Or is it billed all at once for them?
Yeah, so generally on assessments, if they're over a certain dollar amount, we do assess them over a period of years. So I believe it's over $500, we do go out, I believe, like 5 years. How much was this one again, like 1,000?
1,004, I believe it was.
Okay, so that one I would imagine you would do over a 5-year period.
But then you stick it with more interest, right?
We do have to assess interest, yes, to cover our borrowing costs, or our carrying costs.
But I think they got
Open
curb
it up for me.
Curbs
Show
going
lane.
all now.
Oh,
If you take a walk around, you can see it, you know, the crack, busted.
yeah. So, wow. Okay,
It's all scraped, you can see.
I see that, yeah.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, Kelsey.
I guess my recommendation would, still proceed with the assessment, but staff can certainly reach out to MnDOT and see if they would participate in the cost. No guarantee, but we can certainly ask them about it.
Okay,
We also have a senior deferral program for our assessments. If that is something that you'd like information on, I can certainly speak to you about that.
I paid that for that road too many times already, that is Curry Avenue. All right, thank you.
okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue of the sidewalk curb and gutter? Yes, sir, your name and address, please.
Thanks. My name's Gary Garza, 1739 Longbridge Road. Concerning this letter, this is the first letter I got. I never got a letter when it was proposed at first. I mean, I don't stand in the way of progress, but when you up my taxes by over 100% just this year, and then you wanna charge them for a sidewalk, I wanna know what the width is too, how far into my yard it's gonna go. And right now, you plow the road towards my side, the first pass. So it builds up with snow about 6 feet high. And on the opposite side, it only goes down 2 feet. So what are the rules to keeping it clean during the winter time? I wanna know that too.
John?
This is not for sidewalk. We are not installing sidewalk here. This would be 11 foot of curb and gutter.
25 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. 1739. Yes, 25 foot of curb and gutter, no sidewalk. So we're not installing sidewalk?
You're
we're
not
just
doing a
replacing-
sidewalk?
No, we're just replacing some bad curb and gutter.
Okay. Sounds good then.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution ordering the improvements.
Please, I would go ahead with the resolution ordering improvements of the curb and gutter, concrete, bituminous and sidewalks on this. This is approximately 73 parcels. The total cost of all these repairs is $253,000. The city share is $141,000, and the residential share homeowner is $111,000. Committee recommends, and I so move.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the resolution ordering the improvements of curb, gutter, concrete approaches, bituminous and sidewalks for 2023. Further discussion?
Can I ask a question? Who decides the length of curb and gutter that needs to be reinstalled or fixed? Who makes that determination? Is it your department or
Yes.
is it the concrete company?
No, it is our street supervisor, John Cervantes. He runs out, he checks these, usually late summer, early fall, because this happens in February where we're starting to turn these contracts around already. So we're doing it late summer, early fall for next year. And between being cracked up or what we're seeing right now, that's how we determine what needs to be fixed for next year.
How does a landowner have recourse when they have a discrepancy between the amount of damage that they see and think needs to be fixed and the length of repair that is stated here?
Well, and a lot of times, if there is, say there's a bad area in like a center panel of a curb and gutter, you have to take that whole panel. You have to saw cut it on the joints, remove that, because you can't just remove a foot or 2 foot. You have to do that full panel.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. As I mentioned, I'm going to jump around in the agenda a little bit to accommodate people so they can get back outside in the nice weather. So the first item I'd like to adjust is item 5D. We have a gentleman here from Eagle Rock Real Estate LLC. So 5D is under the Community Development Committee. Sean?
Yeah, item 5D, consideration to first reading ordinance 513 for the rezoning of 1150 US Highway 59 from RA Residential Agriculture to RM Multifamily Residential as requested by Eagle Rock Real Estate, the two gentlemen that are here. The committee discussed this yesterday. The Planning Commission also reviewed this. Essentially, in the long-term plan, there's not a clear use for this. Both the Planning Commission and the committee thought this seemed like a good use for it. It's right across from where Subaru is. And it was unanimous in the Planning Commission. The committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to give first reading to ordinance 513, rezoning 1150 Highway 59 from RA to RM. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries, and first reading is given to ordinance 513, and we'll have the second reading at our July council meeting, correct? Any questions, gentlemen? Good, okay, thank you. The next item I'd like to adjust is, without objection, go to item 7C, which is on the Finance Committee agenda.
What are we gonna do first?
I would call on Chairman Joseph at 7C.
All right, item 7C is consideration to a request by the Boys and Girls Club. Kelsey, you want to kind of tee us up, and maybe Patrick wants to give us a little synopsis too?
Mayor and council, there is a letter in your packet from Pat Peterman, director of the Boys and Girls Club in Detroit Lakes. We break that letter down into basically two requests. The city has earmarked $100,000 towards the playground project. $50,000 of that was coming from the Park Dedication Fund. The other $50,000 was coming from our one-time ARPA dollars that we received, kind of the federal COVID relief dollars. So one action would be for the city council to release that $100,000 for that project that has already been earmarked. And then the second part of that request, per the letter, is an additional appropriation of $75,000 towards the playground. That I would defer to Pat.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Pat.
Mayor, Patrick Peterman, Executive Director, Boys and Girls Club, Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. Yes, the release of the dollars that we had requested, I believe 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, and that's been sitting there. We are moving forward with the Lau Pro Sherman Memorial Park Playground. It has a price tag of approximately $730,000. If we release those funds tonight, we will have raised over half at $470,000. We need to raise some more money. As everybody knows, the cost of everything's gone up. The concrete and fill, 104 loads of fill that we have brought in to make it all level on the west side of our building. And we're very excited that we have ordered the playground. We are going to move forward. But we've thought maybe we could ask for an additional $75,000 to make it a little easier on our community. If that were to move forward and some other funds in a matching gift, I think I could raise $175,000 to fulfill the total project cost at this point. So tonight I'm here to ask you and answer any questions if you would consider an additional $75,000 to allow Pro Sherman Memorial Park Playground. I do have some copies of what it's actually going to look like. I know there's one up front. I think it was in your packets. If not, I've got the big picture.
You maybe said this, but if we appropriate $75,000, that'll get matched also, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Dale Larson.
Any questions for Pat? From anybody?
So if all this money comes in the way you're planning on, when would you start construction on it then?
They want to do the footings Friday and pour next week. And the playground will be delivered the week of July 31st with August 28th completion date and ribbon cutting ceremony.
Further questions for Pat?
Well, I don't have any questions for Pat, but the kids on the north side have been waiting almost 30 years on this now, and it's certainly something that's well needed, and we've all been hoping for something like this, and I appreciate the sponsorship of the people. I'm glad that the city is able to give $50,000 twice for $100,000, so I'm just excited for every kid on the north side is finally going to have a park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan?
I got two motions. The first one is to release the $100,000 for the original ask. So that'd be $50,000 for the park dedication funds and $50,000 from CARES or ARPA. $50,000 from ARPA. And committee reviewed this afternoon, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to release the $100,000 commitment that we made as outlined by Dan. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The second half of that motion, or the second half of this is a second motion, which the committee did review this afternoon. The request of $75,000 for the playground. It was recommended by the committee to fund the full $75,000 to bring a park to the north side. There is ways to fund that out of our current general equipment fund, and the committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Second. Emphatically.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve an appropriation of $75,000 for the new playground at the Boys and Girls Club in the Frobisher Park. Questions or discussion by the council?
I'm glad that we're able to give what we have, but I know that we have a liquor fund that's doing really well, and I would like to see the liquor committee to look at for next month's meeting to see if there might be some additional funds that we can find to help this playground and so they can reach their total goal.
In addition to the 75?
In addition, what we're doing here besides, it'd be an additional funding that they need for that.
I like that. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Pat. And Kelsey, would you put that on the liquor agenda for next month per Ron? Thank you. Without objection, I'd like to move to item 8A, which is on the Public Safety Committee, and I'll call Chairperson Sprague.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a discussion regarding public safety in the city park. Some events that have been happening during our committee meeting yesterday. We had some citizens here sharing their experiences, and our chief was here at the time, and he is present tonight, and I'd like to call on him to just kind of share a little bit of that discussion and some plans moving forward, resulting from the course of the last few weeks, and particularly in response to last night's discussion.
Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Beginning this spring, we started to get quite a few concerns brought to us either through council members or from neighbors of City Park directly, particularly concerning behavior of younger people and relating to noise, such as squealing of tires, loud engines, screaming of profanities. Some fights were going on. And so we've kind of been escalating our response to that over the last couple of months. Late April, we assigned extra patrol for the officers just to incorporate that into their route more often and pay attention to these things. That didn't really solve the problem. At the end of May 22nd, we set a directive in the department. If we had so many cars working, one of them would be assigned to the park. And things still kind of spiraled out of control to the weekend before Memorial Day, where we had about 4 fights within the park that were pretty significant incidences. So I assigned our staff to work overtime at the park through Memorial Day weekend. And my observations and that of my staff was that made a big difference, and that quelled the numbers of calls. I felt like that had taken care of the problem. But last night we learned that it hasn't. The neighbors are still very frustrated with some of the goings on there. Pretty disheartening to listen to what they're experiencing there, and I felt we need to make a further reaction. So today I posted multiple hours of overtime. We're going to be spending quite a bit more money to have an officer in the park, a set number of hours each day through the end of the month. So I'll pay for that out of our overtime budget. I might go over this year, but that's just the way it's going to be. Also met with our IT department regarding getting our officers access to some cameras that already exist in the park. It's not the exact area where most of the problems are going on, but there's 2 separate networks that the city operates off of, and they don't talk to each other right now. So he's going to work on installing a patch so that my staff can log in and either pull up historical data or live time data on the existing cameras. And then we're also looking at some other more covert cameras that can be used for multiple purposes, but including this one. So that's where things sit at right now. Did you have any other questions, Wendy?
I did not have any more questions, but I appreciate your quick action and putting together a plan that will get us through the next few weeks and see what kind of impact that can make.
Thank you.
I know there are folks here. I'm sorry, Ron.
I was just going to say that, we've had a problem for quite some time down there with the high school kids during the school year. And this is kind of a similar group where these kids get out of school for some reason, they're in their cars and they're raising heck, and we've done everything from changing parts, but yet these people, they keep coming back, and we've got to find a way that we can stop these kids from getting out of school so that they're raising heck in the neighborhoods during school time where they should be in school, because it's the same situation for the school year that what these people are facing here now for the summer months. But either way, and we're talking last night, they said gang members with fights and stuff, we just can't have that in our, we've got a great city beach, we're known for our tourism, people want to feel safe, and right now when I hear people aren't even safe to go to the park after 5 o'clock or later afternoon, that's just not the reputation that Detroit Lakes wants to be known for. So we do have to, whatever it takes, if it's even more overtime, because we just can't have a few young people, hoodlums, that are just making it rough for everybody. But when they go up and start challenging people at their homes, at their doors, that can't keep continuing here. That's just way out of whack. I can't believe that's happening in our city.
Okay, further comments? I know there's folks here from the neighborhood that may or may not want to speak, but if you do, I'll give you an opportunity to do so.
I'm in.
All right, thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Lynn Schulberg. I live at 326 Parkview Street. I called in 3 times last night, 3 times. There's not a lot of phone calls happening now because people are sick of calling in. They're sick of calling in. And our community that we live in, not just that small community, but it goes out because you can hear these cars coming, you can hear the kids swearing, you can hear the music, and it's a safety concern. And our community has adjusted our lifestyle to accommodate to them. We've installed cameras. I watch. I walk my dogs. They make phone calls. They might go away for the weekend because they don't want to deal with it or hear it. I had kids come to my yard, and this is what one kid said to me. It was a young lady, just polite. She walked up and she said, with a nice little smile, "Every time you call, you're making it worse for yourself because the cops don't do anything." And I went, well, what I heard from an officer was that they're trying to teach these kids. These kids are beyond that. Not only that, there's some adults there too, young adults, absolutely. Their parents aren't working with them. The school tried. I've talked to school teachers. The school has tried. It's the same repeat offenders, the same vehicles, and when we started making calls, so did these kids. It grew. It grew. And when I hear a car coming, I get my phone out. Those kids call me every name in the book. They drive by my house. I had a spotlight last night from one kid. That was a new one. That was a new one. And he didn't like that I called the cops. Again, the community has changed their life. We live here 12 months out of the year. Tourism, huge, I get it. We're here all the time. And it doesn't just happen in the summer. They're whipping Louis, they're carrying on in the wintertime. We need to do something. We need to do something. When it's done at the end of the month, with the officers hanging out there, and granted, it works. It works. Where do you think they're going to go somewhere else and do it? And then they're going to come back. They're going to come back. They do. And if they're not going to come back, they're going to keep driving by my house. They know where I live. They know who I am. They know what I drive. And so you all know, I work for the Becker County Sheriff's Office, and I'm frustrated. We as the victims are working harder than these kids are in behaving, and these young adults. Something's backwards here, and it ain't good. Something big will happen. And if you're going to sit and wait, someone's going to get hurt. And is that what you want, to sit and wait? something's gonna happen. Some kid's gonna run across the street. One of your tourism families, they're gonna be buzzing across the street. They fly up Lincoln Street like there's no tomorrow. It's crazy. They see me, they whip a Louie, and then they go up Lincoln. I have an elderly couple in the neighborhood. They used to walk down my street. Hi, every day they come out. Every day. They rerouted. I don't see them anymore. They're afraid to go over. A babysitter, afraid to take the kids across the street to go to the park. If I want to go to that new public, the pavilion, if I want to go to the new pavilion, I don't want to go through those kids. I'm going to have to take my car or my bike or walk 2 blocks out of the way to get to it. I don't want to go through that. And neither does the community around the park. There's more to it than this. I have a stack of calls. Wendy, you saw that stack. It cost us $50 to get that stack of paper from the police department. So we could show you what's going on. And we're frustrated and we're not calling anymore. I call. You guys, I call. The dispatchers know how to prioritize, okay? We're not taking an officer from an emergency. The dispatchers know how to play the game. They know how to work it. They see me call, they pick it up, they take the information. I pretend to videotape the kids. You guys, they don't care. They simply don't care. We're done. And then we're looking for an end result where we as a community, again, don't have to modify our 12 months that we live here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to the issue?
I think I set it up yesterday.
Okay.
You guys don't need to listen to me again.
I think we understand.
Good. I second it, plus more.
Hopefully with Chief Todd's plan.
Yes, and I did see the police out there today, so thank you. I appreciate that. But I think there needs to be more.
There needs to be. It's in the long term, you're looking for a change.
So
we hear you.
Wendy, I don't think we have any action items, would we?
We do not have any action item on this, but it was important to have the discussion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you guys. Without objection, I'd like to move to item 5E, which is on the Community Development Committee agenda. Sean?
All right, item 5E, consideration to a resolution denying the final plat of Pinewood Estates at 1364 Long Lake Drive, Drew and Ashley Larson. The Community Development Committee reviewed this yesterday, and the real crux of the issue in this particular one is that the final plat is substantially different than the preliminary plat. And because of that, because of the fact that those are so different, we really need to go back through the process if we're going to approve. We can't just approve it carte blanche like that. And so due to the fact that the final plat is so different, the committee recommends denial of the final plat, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
So for discussion, Drew, do you understand the procedure we have to go through? Yeah, certainly. Just for the record, your name and address, please.
Drew Larson, 1564 Long Lake Drive. So you had a question here?
The question is, do you understand why we have to deny it?
Sure. Yep, no, that's great. So the main question here is, I spent the money to kind of show that future plan that you guys wanted. If we send this back through, and obviously, I mean, I don't think that there's going to be really a monetary charge, and we figure this out right here. How do you guys feel about passing it now that you see the future thing like we talked about, and I spent the money to give you, that without the wetland showing? So you guys should have that in your packets, both the future plan and the wetland delineation satellite view there.
So Sean, did you have any discussion either with the Planning Commission or the committee in reference to Drew's question?
Yes, we reviewed this yesterday, and I think what we really kind of came up with is there's probably a couple of different options that we need to review to ensure that there's like a path for the city going forward. I think there's still some questions about wetland delineation within here. The delineation's been done, as I understand it, in these first couple, but not necessarily in the remainder of it. And Kelsey, maybe you can kind of just talk through those options a little bit. You'd probably be able to summarize it better than me.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, so to the applicant's credit, last month we asked for kind of a better drawing of what that future development would look like, and he's provided that. I think there's still, I mean, if there's concern, there's still some concern about, maybe the buildability of some of these lots. I mean, you can clearly see that even like constructing the road, you might have some mitigation you're going to have to deal with through that area. I mean, I think anyone can just see that you have some low areas on some of those lots, so there's some challenges, but I think this is certainly better than what we were looking at last month, so it gives you some idea of what that future development would look like. I think what Alderman Carlson's asked for is, the discussion here is, again, the recommendation from CDC was to deny the plat because, really from a technical standpoint, this isn't, well, it is substantially different than the preliminary plat, so you would deny the final plat. I think the question is, should try to give the applicant a little bit of direction of what to come back with. He can come back with the 3-lot plat as shown, go through the preliminary plat process, we do another notification, we'd have the hearing with the planning commission, and then the council could consider adoption of the preliminary plat and final plat, kind of as shown here, the 3-lot plat. That's an option. The other option is, again, I have to kind of go back to where this whole thing started. The original preliminary plat was a 4-lot plat with the cul-de-sac on the end, with the requirement that the developer would have put the cul-de-sac in. That still is the baseline where we're at today with the preliminary plat. So there's that option. And then I guess the third option would be, is there any combination of that? Is it, requiring the dedication of the cul-de-sac but not putting it in the cul-de-sac? Because again, I think, paraphrase Drew's position here is, he doesn't want to put the cul-de-sac in, the cost of putting the cul-de-sac in, with the possibility that there could be future expansion. He doesn't want to spend the money putting the cul-de-sac in and then have it take it out at some point if you're going to do the future expansion. But there's certainly no time frame for when that future expansion is going to take place. So I think those are some of the options. We can certainly do the 3-lot plat, but it should go back through the whole preliminary plat process if that's something the council wants to consider.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
So one of the thoughts here too then was, really when you look at the dedicated road right-of-way, correct me if I'm wrong, the additional right-of-way that's necessary for the cul-de-sac is really just kind of a sliver on the edge of it in that 4th lot. Is that an accurate representation? It's a small additional piece of dedication.
Yeah, it depends on, there's been so many, we kind of threw a couple of times. So the one you're looking at when you ask that, is that the first one, the first one with the 4th lot and the bubble going north, or this one that you're looking at now?
Well, I'm looking at the one you have here
south?
now, and the cul-de-sac isn't overlaid on there.
Yep, so if it was like this is pretty much exactly how I'd like to bring it with the cul-de-sac, with the dedication, if there's any going south, not north.
Right, but
so
I think
that was.
Correct me if I'm, can you help me out with that?
Yes, I can help you out. So when we start looking at actually constructing the cul-de-sac to meet the city's subdivision requirements of having a 55-foot radius, the drawing that Drew's talking about is this drawing. Because of the location of the lift station, basically the road has to extend and there's a bulb to the north.
Right.
So again, most of the right-of-way is there because as shown even on the drawing, that right-of-way that extends out into the future phase of development is already there. That right-of-way exists today. But in order to do that 55-foot radius and that bulb going to the north, you need extra right-of-way from this lot 4 is what we're referring to. And again, I'm going to paraphrase, there's some concern that that takes up a lot of the property in lot 4 because it gets out into that tree area. So, and the reason why to make that all work is you have the natural gas easement.
Yeah.
There's a restriction here kind of on the west side, and then you have the existing lift station that is in that area. So,
So as a follow-up question, Sean, in particular, you guys have been dealing with that particular spot for a while. Are there any major issues? I mean, are you guys able to deal with it from snow removal and road maintenance and stuff as it is?
As of right now, yes. With no housing there,
Yeah.
we're able to just push straight forward, no issues
Okay.
with the snow.
Right. Okay. So that kind of brings me to, and I think what I'm hoping here is that we can get to a spot where we can tell Drew, hey, here's the path to go forward so we can get this thing done. And what I think the fastest path forward would be to resubmit your final plat with the 4th lot in there and dedicate that little hump on the north side right away. To hear me out here for a second, right? You dedicate that gives you the 4th lot back. Your final plat matches the preliminary plat that gets you through. You've got a plat approved. Then, when you're ready to actually expand, because you're already at this point saying, I'm not going to develop the fourth lot. When you're ready to expand to the next lot, the city has the right-of-way needed if we ever decide to build that cul-de-sac. And when you go to develop that 4th lot, you can come in and propose a new plat, and we can always vacate. Okay, Charlie, you're shaking your head at me here. Help me out.
Go ahead, I just didn't, when you say whenever the cul-de-sac's gonna get built.
Well, I know that's an open statement.
Ordinance
That's
requires the ordinance that it get built by the developer, so.
right.
I think that's the nut to crack here.
Oh, yeah, okay, basically, yeah.
Can you repeat that, Charlie? You said the current ordinance requires that the developer.
Now, the developer would pay for, would dedicate, it's not just dedicating the cul-de-sac, but it's, as Kelsey said, it's constructing the cul-de-sac. And I think Mr. Larson's concern, legitimate, is to spend a bunch of money building, not so much even dedicating, but dedicating and then building the cul-de-sac, which then, if he's going to add more lots onto that side, is going to have to be removed. So he's paid to build the cul-de-sac that he has to then later remove. But on the other hand, the current ordinance says that the developer should put in the cul-de-sac, build the cul-de-sac. So, I mean, either we build it and assess the costs, or the developer puts it in. And so, to me, if this is, you're only solving one part of the problem by getting it dedicated. You are not solving the problem where it's contrary to the ordinance because this thing isn't getting built. Right now, again, you know, a lot of things can be happening, but I don't think we should not address that issue.
Can I go now?
Okay.
I just had a question. So there's just tons of other spots though that you guys have around and like this. So I mean, it's not out of the ordinary to pass something out of the ordinance. Like this does happen, and we could go through a whole bunch of streets just to point it out. I mean, but so just out of curiosity, I know Kelsey did mention if we just and I'm not saying we'll do this, but to put this all to bed, if we did take the original plat today, it sounded like it could just go through and make an alteration just to dedicate that and be done 100%. Am I incorrect if that was mentioned? So in other words, a complete original plat, but a dedicated the sliver, your bubble, and then it's just done. And I'm not saying we do that, but and I know this kind of keeps lingering, but so we don't keep going forever, we could talk about that just a tiny bit more. And if you guys did consider that, you tabled it based on that, is that something we would consider?
I think like this version of the plat, we have to deny either way.
Well, no, because it could still be the other one, right?
Well, with this version of the plat, we'd have to deny either way because it was also denied at the planning commission. So it's got to go back through the process. And the question to us really is, are we willing to accept this non-standard approach and not require the building of the cul-de-sac with, you know, or are we gonna hold him to that original condition of the original plat? I mean, I don't see a choice but to deny this version of the plat as it stands now. What's the path forward that we're willing to accept as a council for our city?
But what I'm hearing from our attorney is that in doing so, we're moving against our own ordinance by suggesting moving forward with a dedicated right-of-way.
Okay, I think, back that up. Okay, I think Mr. Carlson is correct. Right now, the final plat that's up in front of you doesn't match the preliminary plat and doesn't comply with the ordinance. So I agree with Mr. Carlson. I don't think you have a whole lot of choice except to deny that. The question moving forward would be that, okay, now the subdivision ordinance requires this cul-de-sac. So let's assume Mr. Larson comes back and is willing to dedicate that cul-de-sac to you, to the public, but doesn't want to build the actual roadway on it. Right? That would be inconsistent with the current ordinance. But like Mr. Larson says, we make variances to ordinances, but that's something that should get addressed at the Planning Commission and in a new application because it's different from what you're dealing with now. Thank you.
Ron's got a question too.
I've got a question because, you know, Drew told us from day one, he doesn't want to be like some of these contractors went out and did all this expansion and ended up going bankrupt. So he said, I like to go piecemeal on this. So if Drew went ahead and did just the 3 lots, forget that 4th lot, would he still have to put a cul-de-sac in if he put in just those 3 lots? Would he still be, because there, I was out there, I drove out there and I just.
Again, I think it's a council call if you want to require. Right now, that road dead ends. And the reason why it dead ends is our ordinance does allow for, if there's future expansions, to basically do temporary dead ends. That's how this happened. It was a temporary dead end, and it's been temporary for
20 years.
Almost 20 years. So that's how this happened. So, you know, you normally wouldn't allow this dead end to be there. You would have a cul-de-sac. You would have a 55-foot turnaround. So it's kind of a gray area, right? I mean, if you think that this future extension is going to be done, you know, there's some justification why you would allow a dead end. But also, on the flip side, you know, Drew didn't necessarily create this issue of there not being a cul-de-sac there, but the condition put on by the council over a year ago, as part of the plat, was to put the cul-de-sac in. And that's kind of where we're at.
The question I have on it though is, you know, it's sitting here 20 years, most of those people I know of out there, they used to come in, they drive the driveway, they back out, they go to town where they're gonna go, and I'm just looking, this shows an awful lot of lots here, and we all know that we need building lots here in Detroit Lakes, and I guess when I see 3 lots, and I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to have to go ahead and put in a cul-de-sac. I would if there was nothing behind it, but we've got all these lots that someday I think you plan to build on them to do eventually.
I mean, why wouldn't you if they?
And so, I mean, I can see his point on it too, but I'm just saying that for 20 years, the people have used that dead-end street. They go in, there's their driveway, they pull in, time to go, they back out. I mean, I don't understand why, you know, we've got this potential, we're just kind of holding this project up, and we want to get three new houses on the tax roll. I think if there's a way we can send it back to the Planning Commission and then come back on this and make it work. And he did go to the Becker County Soil and stuff, and they came out and kind of showed which plots could be buildable. It looks like the majority of it's pretty much buildable.
We're ready to go.
But I'm just saying, looking at it, I like to see something happen and try to work. We've been working with them, but let's try to get something accomplished. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so the motion is to deny, but
Yep.
it sounds like you're getting more support every time you come.
How much support, is there any way you guys can just tell me once so we know, so we're not wasting everybody's time and money?
I guess that's
just
kind of
don't
what
wanna
I'd like
waste-
to know from a planning commission
I mean-
perspective too, because we
Yeah.
need to deny this here, and it's gonna come back to the planning commission, so what is the council willing to accept? So Drew knows what to do, and we can share that with the planning commission
Yeah.
and move this through for him.
To further muddy the waters, maybe I'll throw out this idea. I mean, I'm not opposed to the 3 lots. And maybe there's a way to, expand the, with gravel a little bit, the cul-de-sac that exists, stretch that out a little bit to kind of, doesn't fully solve the problem. You don't maybe necessarily go into your proposed future 4th lot or whatever that is. So kind of, it seems like that's part of our hangup is the cul-de-sac. And like Ron says, it's existed that way for how long? And my wife and I go out there, we just have to do a Y-turn. Now, we're not a fire truck, I know that, Chief Hansen or anything like that. We're not, we're not police or anything like that, but we know buses have gone down there and survived too, so maybe that's something. But I like the idea of having those platted and.
So you feel good about 3?
That's a non-binding.
Is that something that I can do and just ask it, I mean,
Go ahead. So, going back to the last meeting, what is your plan for, if things stay, the economy stays the way it is 6 months ago, or today, what is the plan for opening up that next section? Because I don't want to have it sitting here with a dead end for another 20 years if you have zero intention.
I'm just gonna take it one at a time, so then I would go to 2, and look at a good project and try and find a decent deal, and then 3, and then I would continue on. But I mean, to be really realistic, I would take it slow again and do a couple, 2 or 3, and try and have you guys work with me. And yes, probably, I know John probably wouldn't like it as much, but stop again and then go piece by piece as for safety.
So then I've got another part of this is, I really don't like planning and putting together a proposal for the applicant at the table up here. We've got an application at the table, and I have a hard time designing on the fly and saying, yes, we'll do this, no, we're not going to do that, kind of piecemeal approach. And I think if that's going to take place, that should happen not at this meeting, it should happen at an office that you decide that you're fair with what you want to do, bring it to the planning commission, go through the channels, we've got the channels in place to do this, and I think I'm in favor of denying the final plat based upon, we don't have a final.
Yeah, no, I knew that was gonna happen, it was good. So John, if I brought that with 3, how do you, I mean, you're on that commission where, I mean, then we can end this here now.
Well, I'm not gonna make a commitment to
Correct.
that right at the moment.
But, I mean-
The only thing that I will comment is if you're gonna come back with 3, I think we have to go all the way back through the public hearing process, because it's that much, that's that different.
Which is
Right.
Kelsey, that's no problem, right? That's-
Yeah, you'll have to do another plat permit fee, but, because we have to send out notices and publish it.
So $25.
Go ahead, Wendy.
I have a question for clarity so I can have a better understanding. Dan asked you a question about further development, and you said you're going to take it slow,
Correct.
1 or 2 at a time.
Correct.
Do you have a framework in terms of, like, in the next year, I'm going to build 2 houses, next year, 2 more, the next year things are going really good, I'm going to try to get a house or 2 a year. Do you have any
I
kind of
definitely
plan
would.
like that?
Sure, so to be 100% off it, honest, I wouldn't move that fast. It would probably be 1 every 24 months. I
Okay.
definitely super conservative, super careful.
So the potential that this stays another 20 years is kind of high in my, I don't mean to be facetious, but
Oh, yeah, no,
I'm
but
serious.
so
It's like if
24
we're
months,
talking
24,
one
that's 4,
house
6,
a
8.
year, and we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, so we're looking at 4 or 5 more years before, and it's still sitting that way. So that's all I want to know.
Yeah, no problem.
That helps
Yeah,
me.
no problem. And it wouldn't be like that for, if we didn't do anything undetermined, indefinitely, right?
Yep.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it,
I
Brendan.
don't know if we made it any clear for you, Drew, but,
Yeah, I don't know. It's we're getting.
all right.
Kelsey, can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Kelsey, you stated that the current ordinances say that there can be a dead end at the end of development for possible future expansion. Is there an end point to that, or it's left open-ended?
It doesn't specify.
Further
Is that
questions?
something that needs to be evaluated in the future so we don't end up in these type of...
We've had that
predicaments?
conversation. I mean, you know, if you think about all the number of phases, like Lake Forest, right? I mean, there was 8 phases, and there was always kind of a dead end somewhere further south on this area of Ridgeview, right? There's a dead end for Ridgeview with a gravel cul-de-sac, and hopefully that leads to a future development. So I mean, that's how this
There was
happens.
some continuous progress of some sort
Right.
that indicated an intent to proceed in the future.
And I think that's what maybe muddies the water on this particular phase is, you know, the feasibility of this, just looking at it is going to be challenging with the length of road you're going to run in there to get serviceable lots, the topography challenges. There's just more questions to it than flat field.
We've talked about rolling that into the development agreement, you know, to prevent these. I mean, yeah, we don't want to build cul-de-sacs, rip them out, we agree, but how long is long enough? And maybe baking that into a development agreement that if there isn't progress within X, you know, the developer is responsible for the installation of the cul-de-sac.
Okay, we have a big agenda to cover tonight, so we better start wrapping this particular item up. Unless there's something else significant, I'm going to call the question. The motion on the table is to deny. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Without objection, I'd like to move to item 7E, which is the Finance Committee. Dan?
7E is consideration to approving the professional services contract with the Chamber of Commerce for the Tourism Bureau. Carrie, you want to give us a little background on this?
Thank you. Carrie Johnson with the Detroit Lakes Chamber of Commerce. We have been under contract with the city and the Tourism Bureau for quite some time. I think we're at 20 years if I have to look back at the books. The contract in front of you, it doesn't have any changes from previous contract other than the cost. We have proposed an increase of 5% for our fee to fulfill the contract. And then the other would be that this would be a 2-year contract. Previous contract was 1 year. During COVID, we were flexible. We had a 6-month, we had a 1 month, but pre-COVID, we were doing a two-year contract. So that is getting back to that. There are some changes on the, what we call Exhibit B, the final page of this contract. There's a few services that the Tourism Bureau will not be co-sharing some cost with. So those costs will go to the Chamber. So we'll save the Tourism Bureau money from that. The contract itself doesn't have any other changes.
Carrie, on that on the 2-year, that 5% increases for each year then?
Yeah, so it would be the 60, whatever the figure is, 67 each year of those 2 years. Yeah.
Any more questions for Carrie? If not, Dan?
Finance Committee reviewed this and recommends approving the 2-year contract for $67,250 for each year. These dollars do come out of the lodging tax, so it's not out of our general fund. So Finance Committee reviewed this, recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the professional services contract with the Chamber of Commerce for the Tourism Bureau. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Without objection, I would move to item 6L on the agenda. That's on the Public Works Chairman's email.
Okay. Okay, item 6L is consideration of accepting bids and awarding construction contract for Terry Street. That's where the food pantry areas and also street utility improvements project, including Dan Drew Estates. I'm going to call on John to give us a little update on this.
Mayor and council, we opened bids yesterday morning on this project, received 6 bids. I laid tabulations.
Can everybody hear back there? Can we grab, why don't you grab the mic? Yeah, not just,
Sorry, how about that?
that's better.
We opened bids yesterday, took 6 bids. The low bid was received from Felt Plumbing. It was a little over $100,000 below our design estimate, so good numbers. He was substantially lower than the other bidders, but I spoke with him, he's good with his bid. So yeah, this would be the project providing sewer and water to the food pantry, and additionally, it would be developing 9 lots in the Van Drew subdivision. I met with the developer today. He's still sort of mulling things over. I believe he intends to move ahead. But any action that you take tonight, my recommendation would be, if you were to award, would be award conditioned on the execution of a development agreement with the developer. So, questions?
Any question from the council for John? So, go ahead, Ron.
The committee recommends awarding the bid contingent on execution of development agreement with the developer of the Danview subdivision. I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to accept the bids on the Terry Street project with the condition of the developer entering into a development agreement. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Without objection, I'd like to move to item 7B, which is on the Finance Committee then.
Item 7B is discussion regarding the library capital needs. Terry Coyle is here with the library, Lake Legacy Library Endowment.
Sure. Hi, thank you, and good evening. I'm Terry Khalil. I'm here wearing 2 hats. I chair the Libraries Endowment Fund, and I'm also president of Lake Legacy Regional Library. I'm here in the absence of a library director to talk about the need on the exterior of the library. With me is Connie Wood. She is chair of the Detroit Lakes Library Board, and later tonight I know she's up for reappointment. I would strongly, heartily beg you to please reappoint Connie and all the others so nominated, including Wendy, because we really need them. At any rate, what you're looking at in the photographs are the frieze panels and the soffit and the wood trim on the exterior of the original 1913 Carnegie Library. You're also looking at a piece of the original frieze, and as it goes around, you'll note it's very soft, it's very porous. We had the building cleaned earlier this year in a cost sharing with the city, and as part of that, when they cleaned the friezes, the paint flaked off. And the paint, of course, is lead, being that it was applied in 1912. They've never been painted since. Building Restoration Corp did the work. They, in their in-house department, and they're a big organization out of the cities, they do historic buildings all around the region. Their conclusion was, this is beyond our scope. The friezes have to be treated specially to seal them before they can be painted. They referred us to 2 painters. One declined to even come and look at the job because we're out of his area. The other made the trip up from the cities. He met with Kelsey and Sean and I to look at the project, and has come back to us with a bid. A couple of things to note about these frieze panels and what you're seeing in the picture. If you look at those pictures, everything above the cream white colored horizontal band needs work. The frieze panels themselves, above that there is about a, 6-8 inch, maybe more, 12, piece of cypress wood trim. Then the next layer as you go up is hand-applied plaster from 1912. And then you have another piece of cypress wood trim. The wood trim, in the estimation of the painter, Kelsey, Sean, I agree because I don't know any different, is that there's a lot of dry rot, and you can see it in the pictures. The plaster has also never been painted, and it now is a very dirty gray black. All of it is lead. And it was the discussion, and I think the consensus of the group, that there's no point painting the frieze panels because they're below the soffits and the trim. All that lead paint has to come off. So if you're going to put up scaffolding to do the work, you really need to address all three components, if that makes sense. That's the original building. On the 1989 building, when that was constructed, first of all, they didn't paint the original Carnegie wood pieces that I just talked about. So the paint that you see there is older than 34 years. On the 1989 edition, nothing has been touched since. You don't have the frieze panels, but you do have the wood trim and the plaster. So that is the bid that you have before you. And I believe so strongly in the role that this library plays in our community. I strongly encourage your support and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions from the council for Terry? Or for city staff, for that matter?
You know, the city of Trail Lakes has been very supportive of the library over there. And Heidi, do you have on your computer some of the funding information that because we've been very generous in paying for a lot of repairs over the years. Do you have that handy there?
Yep, let me pull that up. Take just a moment. So, since 2018, the city has levied almost just under $1.9 million for the library. About 1.4 of that has gone directly to Lake Agassiz for their programming, and then about 500,000 for other building needs and ongoing maintenance and things like that.
Okay, further questions? Dan?
More of a couple of comments. I know with the endowment fund that we learned this afternoon that there was much more in-depth partnership with the endowment fund and the city of Detroit Lakes, and there's, you could probably say it a little bit more eloquently, but there is long-standing relationship between the library taking care of their building for us, because it is our building, but it is managed by the library. So I think there's a little bit more than just the operation funds that we levy for. It's also the maintenance of the building, and I'm one that you know, wants to see people take care of buildings that we have partnerships with, but I think this is a little bit more unique if you want to.
I'd be really happy to, thank you.
Terry, did you distribute the endowment fund information to the whole council?
No, I did not. I think several of you got it, and I was just about to talk about that, okay, if I may, please. I'm going to back all the way up to the start. In about 1974, when the city joined Lake Agassiz Regional Library System, a joint powers agreement was signed. The joint powers agreement requires, and I'm going to quote, "The city shall pay all costs of maintenance, including construction, rent, repairs, upkeep, janitorial, utilities, insurance, and a few other things." That's where the relationship starts. Lake Agassiz Regional Library, of which Connie sits on the board with me, provides you with staff, services, the collection, programming, all of those automation systems and the like. So that's what you're paying for in your contribution to Lake Agassiz Regional Library. The endowment fund, which is independent, it's a board, and Mike has served on this, is a board comprised of representatives of the Library Club, the Becker County Friends of the Library, and 3 members from the Detroit Lakes Library Board, including Connie, Janine Schneider, who am I forgetting, Connie? No, I'll come back to it because no, Mary Beth represents Library Club. Carol Oberholzer is the other one. I represent the Friends. And then we added a sixth person this year. We added a representative of the public because they weren't represented. And given the complexity of the financial world, we put a stipulation that the final member have a background in accounting, finance, investments, or something similar. And so that motion passed, and we added former County Commissioner Ben Rimsley. Ben served as chair of the Lake Agassiz Regional Library System Finance Committee for just about all of his 9 years on that board, and he's been invaluable already. So that's the endowment fund's purpose, and I'm going to go all the way back to Sally Oja in 1990 when this was created. She wrote, "The purpose is to provide resources for programs, services, or building needs beyond traditional public support." What's never been made clear in any documentation, and I have read every single piece of paper about the endowment fund, is where does traditional public support end? Where does the city's requirement for rent, repairs, upkeep, etc., where does that end? One final piece that was alluded to. Since the year 2000, the endowment fund has invested $255,400 in the building. And that detail is available, and I can get more copies. I've got one more here so you can see exactly how we've invested that money over the years. Other questions?
Further questions from the council?
How much do you actually have in your endowment fund today?
The building fund has $36,000 in it, plus an additional $28,000 that we were just gifted by the private donor who paid for the $100,000 bathroom renovation. He has given that to us. It's dedicated for 2 specific projects that we're working on, so that's restricted. We have a special needs account, and then we also have the endowment itself. The endowment itself is, I have to do the math backwards, is about $600,000. But that endowment, the interest flows to special needs, which funds programs, services, furniture, desks, all those kinds of programming. And that's another $137,000.
No building repair on the endowment part as far as...
The endowment is the endowment fund broadly has 3 components. It has the endowment, it has special library needs, which is programs, furniture, fixtures, computers, that sort of thing. And then the building fund itself was added in 2008. We grew that quite a bit. It's how we paid for carpet, paints for the interior, and a number of other projects. That $100,000 that we were gifted 2 years ago to pay for the bathrooms just came out of that fund, which is why it's back down.
Further questions for Terry? Dan?
All right, let's see here. So the ask is for the $42,000 and some odd change to do the restoration and maintenance upkeep of the upper portion of the library, including the fascia, soffit, frieze panels, and those pieces. And since this is one thing that I'm really passionate about, is maintaining the stuff that we've got to make sure we have it for another, 100 years or 112 years or whatever it might be. Finance Committee reviewed this afternoon, recommends approving this cost, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the painting contract for approximately $42,000 for the library. Discussion?
But where is this funding for the 42,000 going to come out of then?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, so our designated library capital improvement fund, actually, I gotta look at this again here. We have those other numbers in there, so it's probably gonna require an additional infusion from the city, our permanent improvement fund, so, because by the time we do the HVAC, pneumatic controls that were already budgeted, we're probably going to need to put some additional funds into our library capital fund.
But you transfer that out of the permanent improvement fund.
Right, correct.
Further questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank Sean and Kelsey for their help with this too. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks.
So without objection, can we go to liquor and gambling control item 9B?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have item 9B, consideration to a request from the Becker County Museum for a sponsorship of the Da Vinci exhibit, which is going to be from September 17, 2023 to January 7, 2024. Becky Mitchell came and presented to a very sparse liquor and gambling control committee, but she can give us a quick little summary of what her request.
Becky Mitchell with the Becker County Museum. Yes, I'm here tonight requesting support for the Da Vinci exhibit. This is a high-end exhibit that we could bring to our community. I explained earlier that we are, the Museum Science Center opened a few months ago. We are busy. I'm still working on the history portion, slated to open in July. Seeing lots of people, lots of new memberships, all of that is good. We are also seeing very high bills in a new building and new utilities, and so I'm trying to boost beyond our community, bringing in greater tourism, greater outside the area. This is an exhibit that I've looked at for several years. It hits it checks all of the buttons, if you will. It's history, science, art. It will touch not only our facility, but we've been working, of course, in conjunction with our neighbors as well. So just really wanting to bring in this exhibit and offer it to our community as a very strong educational component. So in talking with other entities that have had this exhibit, we should expect to see large school groups, and we should expect to see, like I already mentioned, that tourism component, while keeping it reasonable for our school groups and our members currently.
Sure. Okay, questions for Becky? As long as you're at the podium.
Can I ask the total cost of bringing this?
Yes, I should have done a little recap on that. So this exhibit actually jumped tremendously with COVID, with just the manpower to move it, set it up, transportation, all of that. So pre-COVID, we were under right around the 100,000 mark. Now it's at about 165,000, which those numbers don't work for Detroit Lakes, obviously. The reason that it fell in my lap is because it is in Billings, Montana this summer, and they had a cancellation at their next location. So from a routing standpoint, we were an easy gap to fill. So I have worked with them and gotten them down to that 90,000 mark. Financially, we need to get half of that covered in sponsorships, or even then those ticket projections won't work. So
That's incredible. And I see that it's here for September 17th through January 20th.
yeah, I was actually able to also negotiate that and keeping it into January. And so that keeps it through the holidays, which should be good as well for attendance.
So Becky, you said a similar city did this out east.
Yeah, this was in Reading. So I've contacted a few of the museums that it has had, but Reading, Pennsylvania in particular was intriguing because they, from a facility standpoint, they're about the same size as we are, but they compete with the really big museums out in Pennsylvania, of course. And so they struggle. They are very strategic in what exhibits they bring in. And this was an exhibit that they didn't really know exactly what to expect, but they were very pleasantly surprised with the number of school groups that came in and the number of tourists that they were able to pull in, despite those other larger entities having big exhibits at the same time. So they highly recommended working. They worked with this company quite a bit, and they highly recommended them.
Further questions? If not, I would entertain entertain a motion.
So the Liquor and Gambling Control Committee of one this afternoon gave consideration to the request, and I would recommend that there be a $5,000 contribution made to the Becker County Museum for a sponsorship of Da Vinci exhibit from those dates, with funds coming from the liquor fund, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appropriate $5,000 from the liquor fund for a $5,000 sponsorship for the Da Vinci exhibit. Do we have discussion?
Well, I'm going to bring up a discussion again. Tickets are going to be $5 for students, is that correct?
Correct.
Again, I'd like to have our liquor committee at our meeting in September to see how our liquor sales go through the summer, because I know there's going to be a lot of kids probably don't have $5. And that is a concern of mine, so I'd like to see what we can do to get a handle of what we will need to have fun so every kid can go see this, not just a few. And I'd like to see what that number would be, so if we need to help, maybe the liquor fund could help out tickets for some of these kids to see it.
One consideration you could do that some museums do is they do a sponsorship just for those tickets. And you could consider how you want, what that looks like. It doesn't have to be a certain, it doesn't have to be city of, or Deal Public Schools, but there are entities that do something similar to that out of those concerns.
So how would we know what the need is?
You wouldn't know, of course, until they call the schedule. So, or you could just say, City of Detroit Lakes is covering for this district, and I would just report those numbers back to you as those groups come.
Well, maybe we should put it back on the liquor committee for August.
We could okay this one tonight for the 5,000, but do the ticket one in August and just see what we would need to do that. Even if the city paid half of the ticket, $250 or something.
Well, maybe you could just give us an idea of how many students you expect to be part of it from the Detroit Lake School District.
You might have that number.
I could gather the numbers from how many classrooms there are and how many we could feasibly serve during that time. Although I would guess to think at 3.5 months we could probably serve
Anything else on this motion?
any area classroom.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
So, have I missed anybody? Have you guys over here, do you have something on the agenda that you want me to adjust? Anybody else? If not, we'll go to the top of the agenda, and we'll start back with the Community Development Committee, and I'll call on Acting Chairman Carlson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, 5A, consideration to the second reading and adoption of ordinance 510 for the rezoning of 677 Shorewood Drive from RA residential to agriculture to R2 1 and 2 family residential. David Pratt, this was a single lot. We discussed it last month. This is just the second reading, and I think we've worked through all of it. The committee reviewed, recommends approval, and I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 510. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Second reading is given, and ordinance 510 is adopted.
All right, item 5B, consideration of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 511 to change the maximum building height in B3 districts from 3 stories to 4 stories, not to exceed 60 feet. We discussed this last month. This was basically to bring all 3 business districts into kind of line with each other for consistency. The committee reviewed, recommends approval, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 511 regarding building height. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading is given. Ordinance 511 is adopted.
All right, item 5C, consideration of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 507 to an amendment to the zoning ordinance to add section 10A neighborhood commercial district. As we all know, this has been around the block a couple of times. We reviewed and discussed the committee, and while it was not unanimous, the committee does recommend approval, and I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 507, which is an amendment to the zoning ordinance to add section 10A. Discussion?
I've just got a comment, and I know I'm not going to win the battle here tonight, but as I mentioned yesterday, the biggest thing I hear from residents is they want to have a neighborhood to be a neighborhood. They don't mind apartment houses or duplexes or whatever, twin homes, but they don't want to have a commercial area of any kind in the neighborhoods. And I would hope that we could get districts in our town where we can tell people that these are going to be residential neighborhoods only. There's going to be no commercial districts in them, because people, believe it or not, want to live in a neighborhood where they don't have to have businesses around them. And I'm hoping that someday we can do this, because I know people in there, I know other communities have that where they're strictly neighborhoods, and there's a lot of communities have strictly R1 where there's just single-family homes. And there's need, people want them, people want to buy those houses, and I hope that someday we can look into that. But I'm not going to vote for this tonight, because I just don't approve of having commercial of any kind. You can say it's just going to be in a few neighborhoods. Well, if you have to be in one of those few neighborhoods, you're not going to be very happy. So I can't support it.
Further discussion?
Just one comment on that. This isn't changing anybody's zoning. This is giving us a tool to use in development, or if somebody comes forward and wants to put this in a particular spot. It's not going to take your R2 district and make it commercial. It's not going to, it's the same process if we're going to do industrial or business oriented or auto oriented, anything in any of our communities here. It's not creating anything that's not already out there without going through a process, and the process is long and arduous. Needs to happen to do any zone changing.
Yeah, it isn't zone changing, but if you've got open lots that are sitting there too long, the developer's put in, he's maybe planning to build 40 or 50 houses and only gets 25 in there, this will give this a plan to come in and go into that. So that really is truly true on that. And that's the part that I don't like it. And if I was coming to Detroit Lakes right now with this new ordinance, and I was in a district where there's half the lots are left empty, I'd be a little nervous.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. I agree with what Dan's saying here, and I think, the point of that long, arduous process is to prevent exactly what Ron's talking about, that it's open, neighbors have an opportunity to object to the application of any particular zone, and then it has to come all the way here for us to approve. And we've talked a great deal about what does spot zoning look like. If you take a single lot somewhere and you make it a zone, that's probably a spot zone. If we have it in the comprehensive plan as a neighborhood commercial zone or some future commercial expansion, the application of this zone is no different than the application of a business zone or any other type of zoning. And it would be public and apparent and ready, and the name neighborhood commercial does not inherently imply that it must be in neighborhoods. It is up to us to determine how we apply it. And I would call, if anything, a very, very restrictive business zone that allows for a much better transition and a much better neighbor to those residential neighborhoods. And that's all I have to say.
I have one more comment with the lady sitting over here from those neighborhoods. They know what it means. And, we can talk about all we want on this. It is going to happen to you. But until that happens, then I told you so. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So motion carries. Second reading is given.
I bet no too, excuse me.
All right.
You voted no?
No, yes.
Second reading is given and ordinance 507 is adopted.
All right, item 5F, consideration to the approval of purchase of cloud permit software. We reviewed this with city staff yesterday at the committee meeting. This would be a new piece of software to manage all the permits and those processes for building permits paid for by, it will come out of the general funds, but the building permit fees will cover the cost of this software. There is a recurring annual fee, a license fee that's around $20,000 a year. This will also replace it's got several other modules that allow other city departments to be able to use it, including to help with licensing and other things. And it will replace several pieces of software modules in current packages that the city needs to replace because they're depreciated. So after discussion, the committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the purchase of cloud permit software. Discussion?
I'd like to have the cost of this mentioned annually that we're gonna pay for this in the minutes. What's the cost gonna be on that totally?
Oh,
$20,000 a year?
I can.
$19,900.
$19,900.
The annual cost.
Right.
Further questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anything else, Sean?
Nope, that is it from the CDC, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I back up to?
Yes.
Did somebody else vote no on the neighborhood? Second?
Jay and
Okay.
Ron.
Thank you.
So that brings us, Ron, to the Public Works Committee.
Okay, Public Works, we had some discussion on some items. The first item of discussion was regarding some park benches at the playground areas, and specifically around the rec center, that playground, there's no place for people to sit. There are a lot of grandmas bringing their grandkids up, and they're sitting on the ground or sitting on the steps of the playground equipment. So Sean said he would work to get some benches down there. Is that correct? So we're going to get that there.
Alderman Zima?
Yes.
There was 2 added today.
2 added days, so very good. Thank you very much. And then item B, we also discussed about the need to have, we just had 2 garbage cans downtown, one in front of Main Street, running from the J.C. Penney parking lot, and then we had one over in the park by the strip mall there, and we needed more, so you were going to check on that too?
Alderman Zeman, we added 4 today, so the total cost of that would be $62.56 extra a month. So, but 4 were added today.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then we had a discussion with requests about opening up, we had that bathroom out there, the new bathroom at the new city park, had a little vandalism, but now that's being reopened, is that correct?
Alderman Zeman, we're still working on some IT issues, but as soon as that is resolved, they will be open.
So that will come in then, so it looks like we got those resolved, and I thank you very much for doing that and helping those people that requested it to get that.
Are those IT issues related to cameras out there?
No.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, next item is D. We did have a discussion here last month was regarding a request from the Trail Lake Seniors, Ella Bowers and Jasmine Weeds as regards to a crosswalk at the intersection of North Shore Drive and Roosevelt Avenue. And Sean gave us a printout here, if I can find it here, about some ways that we can resolve that. And Sean, maybe you could go over that. I found it here. He gave us three ways we could work on getting that situation taken care of. And Sean, do you want to?
Yes, Alderman Zeman and Council. So we did look at 3 different options here. One would be painting a crosswalk and putting the signs in. The other one would be redoing some ramps, signs, and painting, and then also some auto signs, ramps, and painting. My recommendation would be for the painting and signs only at this point.
Okay, and that'll be at that intersection that there's referred to on it, and we can do that for a cost of $1,600, and the committee recommends, and I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the request from Detroit Lakes Seniors, Ella Bowers and Jasmine Weeks to add a crosswalk at North Shore Drive or Roosevelt Avenue. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item E is a discussion in regards to request by Tom and Pam Mortensen who have designated accessible disabled parking at Guard Park and the dog park. They bought, benches can be bought. If anybody's interested in buying a bench for the city park or wherever, you can dedicate it to somebody in memory or whatever in honor of, for $900 for a bench or $1,400 for a picnic table. But Sean, I'm probably going to have to just kind of discuss what we came up with the idea and why this might be a little tough. Trying to get, there's not really any easy way to get into those parks except for going down the alley of one to get people that are handicapped to get in. And then also in front of that one apartment unit which is about a half a block away to get in. But you want to discuss that a little bit, or somebody?
Mayor, Council, yeah, so there's two requests from Tom and Pam Mortensen. One is they are donating 2 picnic tables to Guard Park. That's one item. Their second request was to look at ADA parking at Guard Park and Dog Park. The challenge with both of those is that they are just on-street parking. They're parallel parking spots. So with the curb there's just some different challenges. Of course, the dog park, there's some grade challenges to get down into the dog park. So I think what we talked about at the committee was good points. I think something we definitely want to consider, especially if we redo Union Street in the future. Consider, can we put in some handicap parking in the alley to improve that access? So I don't think any action at this time, but it's worth keeping in the back of our mind. And then the second item is just approval or accepting their donation of those 2 benches, or 2 tables.
And as Kelsey said, as the street projects come up, we'll go ahead and look at ways we can make it more accessible. But it is a pretty easy way off Union to get into the Guard Park. There's kind of an alley that goes into both, it's a paved alley that goes in both the apartment as well as the Guard Park, so you can just pull right up. Or else you can pull up, there's handicap areas, 2 or 3 in front of the apartment houses. It's less than half a block when you get there, but we want to thank the Mortensens for this donation. I want to make a motion to accept that donation from them, and we appreciate their support.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to accept the donation from Tom and Pam Mortensen for 2 picnic tables for Guard Park. And Ron mentioned the cost if somebody from the public wants to sponsor a picnic table or a bench. And I just wanted to say they're concrete, made out of concrete, right?
They're a steel structure.
They're steel, okay. Discussion on accepting the donation. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is G, consideration of first reading ordinance 412 to amending city code section 604 in regards to the transient merchants, peddlers, hawkers, and solicitors. And Kelsey, you want to go over that with as far as a new fee schedule?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this came out of the discussion last month when we were talking about kind of the transient merchant and the process for it. One of the takeaways that we talked about changing was the duration of the license. Currently, the transient merchant licenses are limited to 6 months in duration. So we're beginning to see some instances where you might have a transient merchant have to come and get 2 licenses because they do Polar Fest in February, and then they're going late into the summer. They have to get multiple permits. So all this does, it doesn't change actually the current fee structure. It just changes the period of those licenses, but they would all end at the end of December. So if you get a permit in February, and you get the full permit of $995, that gets you through the year. If you buy it in August, it's the same price. The other option then with our fee schedule is you can do the $275 plus $36 per event. So we have some who buy the $995 max, and some do the per event license.
And you mentioned on that, if you go with the 275 plus 36, you've got to go 21 days before you break even on it. So you determine which way is best for you. So the committee recommends the first reading is ordinance, so I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to give first reading of ordinance 512, amending the city code section 604. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading is given of ordinance 512.
Okay, item H is also approving the second reading and adopting ordinance 509, amending city code 204.13, the Sports Arena Commission. This was on last month's agenda. We left out a portion of the code, and then when we reprinted the code book, so it was put back in, basically what it was. Anything else you want to mention on that, Kelsey?
I think that covers it.
And so the committee recommends back, so we'll.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance 509, amending city code section 204.13. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading is given and adoption of ordinance 509 is adopted.
Okay, item I is a consideration resolution approving plans and specs and authorization advertising for bids and for the proposed 2023 street rehab projects. John, do you want to go over that?
Sure. Excuse me, Mayor and Council, this is just taking action to approve plans and specs and authorizing us to go out and get bids on the street rehab project. This is primarily a pavement rehab improvement. Include portions of Randolph Road, 15th Avenue, 8th, 11th, White Clover Beach, and a small portion on Burroughs. We started this process a while back in the spring, but we're ready to go to bids with that. I'll just, if you don't mind, Chairman's name, I'll mention the next two items.
Sure, absolutely.
Are the same thing. Just these projects all started separately, but we're ultimately bidding them as one contract. So it'll include Willow Springs, as well as Southwood Shore Estates, and getting sewer and water services to those 7 lots per the request of the developer. So,
okay. Going to mention also that people have been wanting a Willow Springs, so the kids got new bikes out there, and those streets hopefully will be done August, maybe end of September at the latest, so that's when that's going to be happening. So we'll take all three, I, J, and K, in one motion, so I recommend approval of all of them.
I guess I'd like to take them separate.
Okay, let's have it. Okay, let's go to item I here then, a consortium resolution approving plans and specs authorizing advertising for bids for proposed 2023 rehab, as John just went over. The committee recommends, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Adopt a resolution approving plans and specs and authorizing the advertisement for bids for the 2023 street rehabilitation project. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next item is J, consideration of the resolution approving plans and specs and authorizing advertising for bids for proposed Willow Springs street improvements. The committee recommends, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the plans and specs and authorizing advertisement for bids for Willow Springs.
Just just want to note that I'm going to be opposed to this because of the a la carte style of services we're providing for this. So just to stay consistent with the whole process, I'm going to be voting against it.
I may make a brief comment as well.
Please.
The city is assessing 100% to the residents, so it's a pretty low risk for the city. And I think if we're going to go a la carte, that's a good way to go. I mean, it sucks for us because we got to pay for the whole thing, but the city's not out a whole heck of a lot.
Further discussion? The motion is to approve the plans and specs for advertisements for Willow Springs. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Okay, next item is K, consideration of resolution approving plans and specs and authorizing advertisement bids for Southwood Shore State Streets and Utility Improvement Committee recommends, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the plans and specs and authorize advertisement for bids for Southwood Shore Estates. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we have a new one that came up here. You should have application for special events there. Let's see, application reviewed from the city council here. It's a special event. Detroit Park Recreational Area. The date of this is going to be on 7/7/7 and 7/8, from 12 noon to 8 p.m. on the 7th, 8 a.m. to 12 noon on the 8th, and on the 8th also from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Committee recommends, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve an application for a special event from Detroit Mountain. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item, before I go to have John give us an update on our projects, I'm going to go down to item P. This is consideration of a special event submitted by J&K Marine to display pontoons, boats, and docks during the water carnival from July 14th to 23rd. We've had this brought up many times. We've been trying to get the beach from being an advertisement for like a used car lot, and his request here is for 15 boats, and from the small area that they want to put these in. You know, it's such a busy time of year down there to put that in. I would rather not see it at all, but I would recommend that the most we would have down there would be 4 units for the small space that they have. That's my recommendation, and I so move.
Is there a second? No second. Charlie? We have a motion and no second. So does it just go away? Okay?
Okay, so.
Try a different motion?
Well, is, you see on the map, the display area, it's pretty tight to put in 15 boats, pontoons, and docks in that area. So my question is, how are we gonna put all that in that small area? It's been squeezed in there so much, and I believe in the last couple of years, we've cut it back to 4 or 5. I don't know how else we could do it for that amount of space that we have.
And what were they asking for? How many?
15. And just here, a month or so ago, we had that rental place wanted to use one of our streets for putting in their stuff for recreation, and we told them, no, we got public streets, this is a public beach. So I'm just kind of tell one and give direction for another one different.
Mayor and council, Kerry just clarified, their last request was in 2019, and they had 20 units.
Yeah.
And fish houses too.
Yeah.
We approved it?
Yes. 2019, but it was out into the street there, and plus they have their own equipment besides that they use down there, so it's, they virtually take over that whole space, and it is a public beach.
Do you want to submit another motion?
Well, okay, let's.
I guess one clarifying, when you say unit, I'd like a clarification on what that unit is, because if it's 15 boats, it's one thing, it's 15 docks, it's another, it's a combination.
It's a combination.
Of
It's a
pieces, so.
combination, yeah.
The application says approximately 15 boats or pontoons and a dock display setup.
Yeah.
That's what the application says, so do what you want with the.
Well, if we changed it to 8, be fine with that.
Is there a second to that?
I guess,
Go ahead, Lee.
this isn't a second, but just a question. I mean, if we're basically just voting on that space, not the number of units, isn't that kind of the key thing we're looking at? I mean, I guess, I don't think they can fit 100 boats in there, but we know the space in which it's going to be.
Yeah, and this space is actually too tight for what they want to put in. Side.
But I'm not to judge that if they're going to bring in 15 weight boats because it won't fit, they won't fit. I mean, if it's 15 items that will fit.
Well, maybe we have to do is take this back and find out just exactly what they want to put in for that space. We still have time, we still have the July meeting.
Or we could approve it as is and then see how it goes and make a decision if we need to adjust in the future. I mean, it sounds like they've already reduced it by 5 from their most recent application.
Their space hasn't changed.
But it's been tight, and there's been so much discussion on whether this should be allowed even all on the city beach.
Somebody else could make a motion as well. We need to get something on the table.
Your Honor, I move to approve the application as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. I like your idea. Let's keep an eye on it, see what it looks like this year, and we can adjust next year, so.
I guess to that point, 2019, we did have that conversation about let's reevaluate. Now it's time to reevaluate. I'm not necessarily in favor of all the advertising and all of the use of the beach for private industry like this, but I think 4 was too few units. But I think somewhere there is room in there for there to go. 4 is too few, but I think 15 or 16 might be too many. So,
But I'd like a clarification as to the amount of space that they're requesting compared to the previous years.
Same.
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out. So the map isn't very clear. It just says the marina easement, so technically the marina easement Charlie helped me out, is actually that area on both sides of the dock is what the 2019 application is. The current application that was in your packet is more limited. What they have in the map is only between their dock and the boat landing. So
if I may, my struggle with this is we're sitting here debating the number of units, not knowing what type of units, what type of boats, what size, how much space. And I guess that's kind of why I'm asking for some observation and maybe a recommendation from city staff to come back and say, how should we manage it? Because if we're gonna regulate, because this is allowed by ordinance, and if we're gonna regulate how much it should be, then we should have some more generally applying statement that says no more than so much per square space or so much free space open. But I think it's hard for us to sit here and say, you can only have 8 boats. That seems a bit overreaching to me.
Are we gonna allow another boat company to come in and use our city beach to put in? We just gonna use the city beach in front of the pavilion for 15 minutes for 3 days on a weekend. Could somebody do that?
Can we jump in here?
Is that what we're looking for to do? I mean,
Only by a special event?
No, yeah, actually, so when we talked about transit merchants last month, we talked about the city beach. There's this prohibition about any type of sales. Then there's the water carnival exception. So this falls underneath the water carnival exception, and then because J&K basically has that easement there, is why the city has allowed only J&K to do it in that location during the water carnival.
Okay.
And also their dock license, I think.
Yeah.
That's
Starting to
you have the only commercial dock license.
It's starting to feel like we're gonna be here for a long time, so I'm gonna call the question. We do have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. I'm gonna do a roll call vote. We'll start with Jay. Aye. Sean? Aye. Mike? Aye. Ron? No. Wendy?
Aye.
Dan?
No.
That's everybody, right? The motion carries. Is that it for the public?
No, we've got to give, I'm going to have John give us a quick update on our monthly engineering report and tell us where Westlake Drive and all these projects are at. People want to know.
Certainly, council, lots going on, and it'll probably get busier here yet, but Westlake Drive Phase 1, so this is the Legion County Road 6 portion, they are making really good progress. We're working on kind of the final schedule as they finish up down there. What it's looking like right now is they've effectively committed to opening the trail to the public by the 4th of July, so we would have that open and usable. The road, on the other hand, is largely done, but they have to finish up some of the cleanup work and restoration. Unfortunately, we can't really open that road to traffic. There's just not enough room for them to be able to work safely until they're basically done 100%. So I'm thinking by middle or later part of July, the road will be reopened. However, we are going to reopen that road on the weekends to two-way traffic, starting on the 4th of July weekend, just to help get people moving around town a little bit better. So that's the update on Phase 1. Phase 2, there's not as much to report. Basically, the concrete work is done. They're working on restoration right now. We're waiting for the utility companies to finish some stuff. They've done that. So I would expect we'll be doing the final paving and some of that work probably next week on that. And then that project will be wrapped up shortly thereafter. So Willow Homes and Frazee, they got the remaining trees in on Holmes and Frazee Street yesterday. That was the largest outstanding item, just a couple of very small items to finish up, and then we'll be making final payment on that. Long Pine Estates Phase 3, the final lift of pavement will go on that project on Thursday. That project will be done. Becker County Museum, they are going to be paving the newer areas of the parking lot later this week or early part of next week, and then doing the overlay on the existing lot probably later next week. So again, getting close to done on that one. Campbell Avenue and Linden Lane, we have a pre-con on that tomorrow. They expect to start work on that project next week, so you're going to see things start to spool up on that project. Summit Avenue, contractor keeps indicating maybe late June, early July, I'm thinking more towards the July area at this point, that they'll get started there. We talked about Terry Street and the Dandridge subdivision. We awarded that bid tonight. And we've talked about the street rehab, Willow Springs, and South Shore Estates already, so that's it.
I have one question. I have people ask me about Home Street in front of Ramsden's law office, where it's been patched, but what's the next big repair of that going to be?
That's on the capital improvement plan for next year.
For next year on it?
Yeah, so assuming we move ahead with that as planned, there's a number of streets sort of on the west side of the downtown that we would be doing next year.
Okay, and then also I want to say that brand new trees that were planted here just the other day on Holmes looks very nice. Good to see it. Thank you. That's all I got, man.
Okay, thanks, Ron. We'll go to the Finance Committee agenda.
Do you have a motion?
But we have a motion to accept his report.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded to accept the monthly engineering report. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Dan?
Item A is an update on the local option sales tax. Kelsey, you want to give us an update?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, I think I'll just speak to the memo that I have in your packet. Again, just kind of an update on our sales tax legislation did pass the legislature here this last session. Good news that it passed, because the legislature also passed a 2-year moratorium on any new local option sales tax request. And I kind of explained in my memo that while it sounds like it's only 2 years, by the time you get to May of 2025, you can basically lose that legislative session of 2025. So really it's 2026. And that's usually a bonding year, so feasibly you may not be looking at a tax bill until 2027 to get approval, which if you got approval in 2027, you may have to wait till the general election of 2028. So you might have a lot of communities waiting until 2028 to 2029 to actually get collections started with that 2-year moratorium. So it has a lot broader impact than just 2 years based upon the current language, and they don't rescind it sometime between now and then. So the good news is the city has the authority to go out for a local option sales tax. It is capped at $17.3 million over 12 years. Explain a little bit about what the sales tax can be spent on. The language of the bill is in the memo. Again, it basically states for the pavilion, including park improvements, beachfront improvements, and parking improvements. I mentioned in the memo there's a question about since Washington Ballpark was not funded through the bonding bill, could any of those sales tax dollars be used for Washington Ballpark? I think what we're trying to argue is that those are park improvements within City Park, but we're trying to get that clarification from legislative staff, so don't have that answer tonight. The other question is timing. When can we do the referendum? The city, through the legislation, did get special approval to do an election, if so chosen, yet this year in 2023. Otherwise, you're looking at November of 2024. Of course, an election in 2023 would be a special election, so it would be, really, this would be the only thing on the ballot. This would be specific to whatever that sales tax request is. Otherwise, you'd be looking at the general election in 2024, so it'd be on the ballot along with all the other city and national and state races. So to really break that down, I think what I wanted to do is give you some idea of what that time frame would be. Of course, 2023 is a very condensed timeline because it's June already. So really, backing up from the November election date, 90 days before puts you at August 9th. So the reality is that you have the August council meeting on August 8th to really make a final decision if you really wanted to pursue a referendum yet this year. Maybe I should explain why we asked for the authority to do an election this year. Was the whole idea was to shrink the gap between when our current sales tax lapse here July 1 and when the new one would come on. That was the whole motivation, trying to ask for a quicker time frame. So obviously, if we don't meet that August 9th deadline, we'd be looking at next year doing the general election. So that just gives you some time frame. Again, we talked a little bit about next steps. Again, just kind of reiterating what I mentioned before, our work session, that was April 19th. I think the consensus of the council was wanted to do some sort of project, but didn't really love the design that the consultants had come up with. So we really talked about how do we go about getting some different designs. And I think that's kind of where we're at in the discussion process.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, I guess after hearing the update on local option sales tax and knowing the time frame that we're looking at, just to keep the ball rolling, I guess I would like to make a motion to approve the RDG design proposal of $38,500 for 3 floor plans and 1 more general concept to come out of that, to be used whether we go forward with 2023 and keep that process going, or if we go out at 2024 to the public to vote on. So I would make that motion to do the RDG plan.
Second. Okay, motion's been made, second. I just want to make one other thing clear. One of the design concepts we've asked for in this process would be something that's more similar to the existing architecture of the pavilion. So,
right. Yeah, and I guess I would see this as, to the mayor's point, as kind of a continuum between what we currently have and what was proposed originally, and that's what we pay people to design those items for.
So I would open it up for any further discussion.
And we've got a special council meeting coming up to look at some new plans, do we? Do we have a date on that, or?
It hasn't been approved yet.
No, but I thought you were working on that. I thought we were going to have a meeting just to discuss it before we went back, but
No.
Because see, well, that even tells me even more to look at a date for August 9th. It's just about impossible to get something put together. Because I thought we were going to have a meeting.
We're looking at having a work session next Tuesday, June 20th, but that would be primarily focused on the capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
I mean, if the approval is tonight, I mean, I'll let them know, but it's going to take some time for them to put some drawings together.
Okay.
Because the point I had on this whole thing, that I think we've got to slow this down, because the comments I've been hearing, I think if we push this thing on the 9th, that we would have a hard time getting this to pass through. There's too many open questions, and with August 9th just around the corner here, I just don't think we're going to have, to get the drawings that we need and all the discussion. Aaron Dahlman's not here tonight. I just think we need more time to do a good job so that we can really have something to show to people. And we also have a question that Dr. Graney had. We've got to look at the feasibility of the costs and the expenses of operating this building too. We're going to make it a small type center with conventions and stuff.
So,
I have a comment. I would not like to see things slow down on this. When I look at the memo and all the information contained in it, and the one line, putting on the brakes, restarting in 6 years, potential loss of up to $12 million in possible sales tax revenues that could support whatever design we end up with, seems like an opportunity we don't want to step back from. And I think we're just asking right now to have some new designs added, right? And then we're looking more at the next step.
Just to be clear too, Wendy, we can have the election next year also.
Yes, I realize that.
That's just 1 year off by 6 years.
Yes.
Further discussion.
I would like to see progress on this also. However, I'm somewhat consistent with Aaron Dahlman's thought about spending money. And it's okay to spend money, but I think we need to spend money and give direction to this RDG as to where we want to go, and where did we end up with after our work session 2 months ago. Do we want a 2-story building? Do we not want? Do we want to incorporate the trusses from the old building into something that looks similar. I don't think we should have an open-ended checkbook here, giving these people authority to make designs that really aren't congruent with where we want to go with this. So I think if we're going to spend the money, which I'm okay, but I think we need to state some direction as to where we want to go and where otherwise we're just, as I talked to our mayor today, we're floundering around with, designs that they're coming up with. Well, maybe we should be controlling it here, saying we want to go in this direction, come up with designs that fit where we want to go with this. Because even if we we make the deadline and don't miss out on all this money you're talking about, doesn't mean that the taxpayers are going to vote it in, and then we're going to miss out anyways. If we don't get the right design that they want to. This isn't our project. This is the city's project, the residents' project. And what I hear, they don't want this big Taj Mahal glass structure that doesn't fit the environment. So I think we need to direct RDG where we want to go, where we want this money spent. Otherwise, it's another waste of $30-some thousand.
I agree with everything you said.
So,
in terms of direction.
I guess what we do, Kelsey, is just to talk to RDG and tell them what the concerns are, and that we want to look at some different stuff that, to Dr. Dorini's point.
But Mayor,
certainly do that.
I'm not sure we've discerned all that what we want adequately, have we?
I think the problem would be we'll probably have 9 or 10 different opinions, so that's kind of where the devil is.
But eventually we have to whittle it down.
Yeah, good point. What I heard from the last meeting is certainly an option where you would take the top story off, and then I think rework the back part of the green space that is maybe wasn't thought out real well, and try to utilize that better. And then I think once you kind of nail down that footprint, then it's kind of the aesthetics of it, right? So we know one style that we want to look at is kind of the traditional pavilion style. I don't, there's 3 options that they're going to do. I'm not sure what those other 2 options are, because I think there is probably 9 different opinions, but I think that was the direction that when RDG put the proposal together, we talked about doing is taking the second story off, landing in, having at least the same size of event space as there is now. And then it's that different architectural themes is the other question. One being kind of the standard pavilion style. And I'm not sure what the other 2 styles necessarily are.
But we can convey the concerns that are being brought up about the glass or the look of the building, things like that. Ask them for something, 3 new things,
Yeah, I'm not an architect. I'm hoping that they come up with a few options that you guys can look at and then we've heard the feedback on the current one, and I think come back with some other options and hear more from you guys. I don't know how else to do it.
I guess I've got another comment. So when we did the police station, we figured out what we wanted for square footage. We figured out some of the rough ideas. We weren't placing doorknobs. We weren't placing where the cars are going to park. We came up with an idea of what we needed for square footage. And then the architect firm that we worked with to do the outside rendering was kind of bring us a few different renderings. And then we sold the package. Yes, it's different because hopefully nobody goes in the back end of the police station, and that's someplace I don't really want to spend a lot of time. So 2 different buildings, but in general, what we're trying to do is get a concept and then get that exterior theme so we're all comfortable with something, but we do need to be on the same page. And I'm not saying we should ramrod this through so we get it done in 2023, but I just want to keep things moving because we waste 1 more month, we waste 2 more months, we waste 3 more months. Now we're guaranteed to be under the gun for new planning projects. So I think if we move forward with that direction that we can give to RDG, I think it's an opportunity to keep this moving, whether we do a 2023 referendum or 2024.
And we're looking at a 10,000 square foot building approximately. Is that the kind of the square footage or similar to what we have down there now?
Yeah, I don't remember. You know, the number that sticks in my head is, you know, when you take the upper story off of the current plan and you leave the main hall area, it's about 8,000 square foot, which is very similar to the 8,000 square foot that is currently in the pavilion. I think the current pavilion is probably about 10,000 square feet, but we were at over 12,000 square feet with the new one because it's the larger bathrooms, it's the larger kitchen, it's the larger storage area. That was what was pushing the overall footprint in. And again, the upper story was added because through that whole process, people said they wanted a second level, they wanted, you know, rooftop decks, and they wanted conference rooms. So those are all those things added in the second level. But so those things go away, but you're still back to that main footprint. Just unless there's a different opinion on this, the other thing I told RDG is, you know, we're going to have more work sessions and special meetings with the council because I don't think any of you here want to say, well, like the PD, we had, all right, Public Safety Committee, you guys go deal with that. Or City Hall, we said Finance Committee, you guys go deal with that. Or Public Works Committee, you guys go work on the design. I don't see how that works for this project. I imagine you all want to have input, so the way I see doing that is probably more work sessions with the council as things are proposed.
Further discussion?
Well, we're also looking at the water park still, is that correct? And then also, you know, a new playground up there too, so that's all part of this.
So this, we have a motion and a second on the table, right?
Yep.
And this will require 6 votes. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Dan?
Item B, we've done. Item C, we got Round Park on the north side. Item D is consideration to approving the DMRA budget and the rates for the 2023-2024 season. Mark Knudsen and Stu Humberg were here this afternoon to present to the Finance Committee. They made some adjustments to their budget. You know, last year they had a really good year, and they kind of took a more conservative approach instead of building upon that last year, kind of dialing that back down, so they're kind of within that $250,000 profit margin that they were in. Their rates kind of reflect that, and they did a 5% increase on day passes, and they made a little bit higher increases on their season corporate passes. Finance Committee reviewed it, recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Detroit Mountain Recreation Area budget and rates for 2023-2024. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And now we're down to item F, which is consideration to a resolution to support the 2024 bonding request. Kelsey, you want to take this?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, unfortunately, the Washington Ball Field project was not funded in this last legislative bonding bill. However, there's a quick turnaround. Minnesota Management Budget is already requesting projects be submitted for the 2024 consideration. The deadline is actually this Friday, the 16th. So in your packet is a resolution to basically a resolution of support and authorizing submittal to MMB for a 2024 bonding request. The only thing that's a little difficult here is we're trying to get updated numbers from our architect for what a good budget number is that should be. The numbers that you see in here is actually when we first put the request back in 20 or 21, and since then we've just been adding inflation to it, there's been adding percentages to it. There hasn't really been a re-look at the actual budget and updated it. So basically asking the council for some grace to approve the resolution with the intent that we're going to update those numbers based upon what the architect gives us this week for submittal on Friday.
Okay, Dan?
So a motion to that would be consideration to a resolution to support the 2024 bonding request for the preservation and rehabilitation of the Washington Ball Field and Grandstand with the cap of a $3.5 million total project cost. And Finance Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to adopt a resolution supporting the 2024 bonding request for Washington Ballpark with a limit of $3.5 million total cost. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And Mayor, for the media, by all means, contact me on Friday and I can get you what the number is, so you don't have to go with up to 3.5 million or something.
Is that the end of the finance stand?
I have nothing further.
Okay. We'll go to the Public Safety Committee. Chairperson Spry.
Thank you. Item A, we've completed. Item B, consideration to a memo from the fire chief approving the fire department recruitment incentive, and I see Chief is here. Do you want to speak to it at all?
Sure, thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, the memo in your package is just kind of a quick breakdown, sort of a kind of retention incentive for our current members to go out and recruit within the community, find like-minded members of the community to come in and hopefully come into the fold, move them through the process, help them get through that process, get all the way through that 1 year, get off of probation, and then it incentivizes our current members to kind of help them through that process so we can keep members longer. That's kind of this first memo here.
Okay. Wendy?
So I would make a motion approving the fire department recruitment incentive.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the fire department recruitment incentive. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Oops. Item C, consideration to a memo from the fire chief approving a fire department wellness program. From my understanding that this is taking our current wellness program that we provide for our city employees and extending that to the volunteers in our fire department. Is there anything else I should know or add to that?
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a fire department wellness program. Discussion on the motion.
Just briefly, similar to my request when we did this for the city, I would love to see some statistics on usage and benefits, and perhaps if it's possible to, and in any way correlate that to health insurance. I would love to see those kinds of things. I'm not asking specifically for that one, Kelsey, because I know how challenging that is.
But I was going to say too that the employees or the volunteers for the firemen, they're going to have to attend a minimum of 10 times a month in order to have facilities operating. So that there is a requirement that they have to actually be there and work out.
Yes.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item D, consideration to approving the second reading and adoption of ordinance 508, amending the city code section 204.12, Police Civil Service Commission. This is the second reading, and I don't know that there's any additional changes to it. Does anybody have any additional comments to this? Kelsey, do you have anything to add?
Mayor and Council, we were just making a few changes to make our Civil Service Commission rules consistent with state statute regarding appointment, meetings, and election of officers.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to give a second reading and adopt ordinance 508 regarding section 204.12 Police Civil Service Commission. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading is given. Ordinance 508 is adopted. Anything else for the Public Safety Committee?
No, there is none.
So we're to the Liquor Gambling Control Committee, which is made up of Mike Stearns.
Item today only. I have item 9A, consideration to the request from Detroit Lakes Chamber of Commerce for a sponsorship for the 4th of July fireworks. After looking at some of the historical numbers, knowing that in 2021 the $4,000 was given for the 150th anniversary, and that there was $3,000 given in 2022. I make a motion to provide a $3,000 donation or sponsorship with the proceeds to be paid from the liquor fund, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to donate $3,000 to the fireworks from the liquor fund. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I also need to add item 9J. This is a special event liquor application from Lake Shirts for an event that occurred on June 8th at the Holmes Theater. So I so move for approval.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve an event from June 8th for Lake Shirts Community Center, correct?
Correct.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. That's it for the gambling. So I still don't have recommendations for the Becker County Child Care Food Pantry. I think I can fill those though with outside people. I was hoping somebody from the council would be willing to be on the Minnesota Flyers gymnastic board, simply for the fact that we're going to be doing, or they're going to be doing this construction project. It would be nice to have somebody from the council that would be involved. So if anybody wants to volunteer tonight, that'd be great. Or if you want to take it under consideration and let me know at a later date, I'll accept that as well. But I'm not hearing anything. So I'll move on. I would like to recommend Jenna Walls be appointed to the Detroit Mountain Recreation Board. So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Jenna to the Mountain Board. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oops, I missed one. I would like to recommend that Justin Koenig be appointed to the Planning Commission to fill the term vacated by Kyle Fody.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Justin to the Planning Commission. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I would like to reappoint Wendy, Tim Egebraten, Connie Wood, and Janine Schneider, all to the Library Board, and I would entertain a motion to reappoint those four individuals.
So move.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to reappoint Wendy, Tim, Connie, and Janine. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. I would like to recommend that we appoint Dan Josephson to the Detroit Lakes Community and Cultural Center Board to fill the vacancy starting on August 31st.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Dan to the DLCCC Board. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And I would like to recommend the reappointment of Ryan Hill to the DLCCC Board.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to reappoint Ryan to the DLCCC Board. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I just wanted to re-mention that next Tuesday, June 20th, at 4 p.m., we're going to have a 5-year capital improvement plan special meeting. The rest of the joint governance and council dates are listed below. Anything else from city staff?
Mayor and council, yeah, we got the special meeting next Tuesday. Again, the capital improvement plan will be the focus, but it's summer in DL, so I'll probably get a bunch of liquor licenses in the next few days, so we'll see.
Okay.
We gotta add anything, but.
Sure. Okay. Dan, anything else?
Should mention too, we are closed next Monday for Juneteenth. So.
Holiday.
Not taking up too much time. Have you? Wendy, anything else?
I don't have anything else, but I just want to say one thing. So I've been on the council for a couple of years now, and so all of the conversations around parks and things, Ron has mentioned his desire to have a park at the north side of our town, and it was really gratifying today to see that happen for him, so I just want to apologize.
And there will be a ribbon cutting also.
Special guest speaker.
Man,
Vice Mayor Zeman.
But I want to say, it's a busy time in Detroit Lakes, and I know that Public Works, Sean and John and the entire crew, getting our city parks and everything going, plus all the street work and you name it. They've had a busy spring because we had a late spring, so they got a lot of catch up. But just want to say thanks to them, and also to mention thanks to the police department, because they've got their hands full, because they're getting into a season where we got all these out-of-town people coming in to visit our area, so they're extra busy. And of course, we got the new fire chief, and he's working on new programs, so we're lucky that we've got the staff we do, and then we got the people over, and the old police department from the city staff, trying to get all fitted in there, but we're doing good here in Detroit Lakes, and we've got a great city to live in. And I thank all the employees and volunteers that make that happen.
What about the mayor?
And the mayor, Kate and I especially want to thank you.
Thank you. Mike? I have nothing to say. Sean? Jane? The business of this council has come to a conclusion. The meeting's adjourned.